We also are now awaiting the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, to arrive in the national capital. I believe these are the visuals that are going to be played out in just a second from that spot where the dignitaries are currently arriving. We would be playing out those live visuals for you. And this also becomes a very significant visit of a world leader. US President Joe Biden is already slated to arrive. We've already told you about the Bangladesh Prime Minister, Ms. Sheikh Hasina, who's already having a bilateral with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Also, he's had a conversation with his Mauritian counterpart, and now it is the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Anthony Albanese, is going to be arriving. There you have Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, all set to welcome Mr. Albanese as he arrives in the national capital. Remember, all the union ministers have been designated, given this task of, in fact, going and welcoming all the world leaders. And this time it is Rajiv Chandrasekhar who is going to be, in fact, welcoming the Australian Prime Minister as he arrives in the national capital ahead of the G20 Summit. My colleague Abhishek Jha is with us on the broadcast. Abhishek, we were talking about how crucial all these visits of the world leaders are. G20 Summit, India as the president. Anthony Albanese's visit becomes really crucial, like we've always been talking about the US president. And we also know when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Australia, the rousing welcome that he'd received over there. And all of that is going to be part of that discourse once Anthony Albanese arrives and lands. In fact, he is about to, because the plane is there. It has touched down into the country. There he is.
Of course, and there has been multiple issues that the two sides have been able to, move forward upon. Issue of mobility, issue of, trade agreement. These are the certain, takeaways from the recent bilateral relationship of India and Australia that has seen, more strength. Recently, Prime Minister was in Australia where during this Quad Summit level talks. But that bilateral visit of Prime Minister was very, the kind of ceremonial welcome that he got and the warm reception by the Indians, diaspora living in Australia that he got, that clearly defines what India-Australia relationship is all about. India-Australia relationship is also important because of the Indo-Pacific, region where the two sides have been collaborating and cooperating, and they are part of this Quad grouping also, which tries to, in a way, balance the dominance of a particular country and keep the region rules-based and free for all, transparent, and not in a way dominated by any particular
Abhishek,
country.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Let's explain the visuals that we see on the screens. There you have Anthony Albanese along with his wife, who has arrived in the national capital. He's been welcomed by Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar. Abhishek, this also becomes very significant because when it is about the Indian-Australian ties, they have unfortunately also seen a lot of tussle because of the kind of Khalistan protests that the country has seen, the referendums that the country has seen. And all of that was part of the dialogue between India and Australia back then also when it was the Quad Summit. And I believe even in this bilateral ahead of G20, it is going to be forming some part of the conversation.
Indian communities, their security is of paramount interest to Indian government, and whenever there has been an attack on Indian communities or people of Indian origin in some countries, India has always tried to raise the issue diplomatically. In the recent months, we have seen increased attempt by the pro-Khalistan grouping or anti-India groupings to increase the sentiment against India in countries like UK, USA, Canada, Australia, in some parts of Europe as well. Fortunately, Australia has been one of the countries which has opposed such incidences vehemently. There have been official communication and official statements from Delhi also, the High Commissioner of Australia, and then we had issued a statement. Then we saw a statement by Penny Wong, the Australian Foreign Minister, also on the issue. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also issued a statement saying that the bilateral cooperation or the bilateral ties are more necessary. They are strong enough, but certain violent extremists or certain people who are in the pretense of freedom of expression trying to, disturb the peace and harmony in the Australian society, that will not be tolerated. And these ghouls who are trying to do every single act under the pretext of freedom of expression and speech and democratic right to protest, they'll be dealt with. So we have seen certain decrease also in such incidences in Australia. So, and that tells the kind of importance the two sides have given to the bilateral relationship. And the small irritants like these fringe elements who try to create an issue out of nothing in terms of creating an anti-India sentiment in Australia, they have been dealt with in a way that the bilateral relationship at least doesn't seem to be impacted by those small irritants.
Right, and also Abhishek, there is much talked about a poolside meeting with Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister Narendra Modi this Saturday when the summit starts tomorrow. And also the crucial aspect ahead of the summit, he has really underlined this aspect and this key point that he's deeply invested in the Indo-Pacific. How does one read those statements?
So Indo-Pacific remains a very crucial region where about 40% of the world trade happens. And for this reason, to remain very open, transparent and free for all is very necessary.
Okay.
Not only Australia and India, but also countries like Philippines, Myanmar, Vietnam, Brunei. These are all part of Indo-Pacific and the maritime boundaries of these countries goes along these boundaries of South China Sea as well, where we have seen in the recent past multiple occasions where Chinese side have tried to show their aggression and the posturing that they dominate the area. Recent map incident that has also happened where China has included certain maritime territory of these countries into its own map has also created some controversy where the countries have opposed Chinese action and asked China to withdraw that map. So the dominance that China has tried to create both politically, economically, and also in terms of boundary-wise, like pushing away the boundary and trying to infringe upon the other boundaries of other countries. These are the concerns that the smaller countries in the region wants to counter. Australia is also, in a way, being challenged by the Chinese dominance in that area, but Australia has also tried to keep its security and the regional cooperation very strong, and India happens to be one of the pillars in Indo-Pacific where Australia and India are cooperating to counter any such dominance.